of us just have to go through to learn how to not do that. But I can tell you from my personal experience, there's a feeling that we are taught not to look at. I don't know when we're taught this, but I know that our mind can override it sometimes. And it's a feeling of being powerless. It's a feeling of someone knowing more than you, and not in a way that you're awed by them. Well, it can be. It's a certain type of being awed by them, but in a way where they really make you feel less, like a lesser person, and they make you feel like oh, you're too little in your path to learn these things or something. They don't have much compassion. And this is an ego programming that they haven't gotten out of yet. And it's to say that, yes, they might know information. They might be really good at some of the things that they do. But from a standpoint of learning from them, if you are trying to learn from someone who is trying to hold themselves above you, then get yourself out of that situation. Because if someone's trying to hold themselves above you and trying to talk down to you, and you'll get a feeling of being powerless, a feeling of being like small, you know, and it just means that that person has more to work on, and they're getting caught up in the ego still. And this is something that can happen to people a lot. They learn some information, and then they get so pumped on the information that they don't actually practice certain things, and a lot of those things have to do with being above people. We're taught in our society to be very controlling, and that's how you get things. And that's not, when there is a reciprocal relationship between you and the other person, and understanding that you are both equals, then there is a lot of really amazing things that can happen, because it's an understanding. It's, I'm giving you energy and you're giving me energy, and it's going back and forth. It's not energy vampire, someone sucking your energy from you, thinking that they're so powerful. And if this does happen to you, don't feel gullible. It happens. It's a lesson that some of us attract to ourselves to learn how to deal with it in the future. And it happens. Just really be aware of it and go with your feelings. Again, just like desires and things that you want to learn and things that you're attracted to, it's a pull, it's a feeling. It's not like a thought form. The thoughts normally will negate where you're going, and they'll convince you, you'll end up convincing yourself via your thought patterns that it's not, something's not happening, or something's not as important as it is. But when you really feel pulled, and where your feeling center is, like when you really feel pulled certain ways, in negative or positive, pay attention to it, because it will tell you much more than your thought patterns will, especially if you haven't done much work in negating and reprogramming your thoughts. I do want to talk really quickly about the fact that you can fall asleep again. I've seen people, I've had experiences with people who have, you can, and it's a really dangerous thing, because you can think that you know all the information, because you could learn, you could read tons of books, but if you're not doing the work yourself, then there's no point. You can think that you know the information, but knowing the information isn't the point. The information is just a middleman to get you to evolve yourself and to understand, and like a roadmap to evolving yourself. But you can have a map and not follow it. You can study a map and not follow it. I could tell you tons of things for you to do, and you could know all those things, and yet you could not do them. But you could talk about them, and you could think in your mind logically, well, I learned and studied the information, so I know it. But unless you're acting it, unless you're taking it within yourself and really taking the discipline to work on yourself, you'll get caught up in the ego of the information, and you'll get caught up in feeling that you know so much of it and that you already are above it or whatever. But really, when you talk, like if you were to talk to like a Tibetan monk and you were to say, have you learned everything that you need to learn? They would say no, because you don't ever stop learning. And just because you can sound good, and just because you can sound like you know what you're talking about, just because like when you talk to someone and you sound like you know what you're talking about, it makes you feel like you know what you're talking about, you don't necessarily know. you don't necessarily understand what is going on. And so, because you're not experiencing it, you're just talking about it and you just know it in your head, but you're not reprogramming your head. So you can get really caught up in ego, and it's something that I really think more people should talk about and be aware of, because it's a scary thing, because you can really convince yourself that you are almighty when really you're not, and when really you're actually just halting yourself. And so yeah, I just want to talk about that for a second. You can get caught up in old patterns, because normally what will happen is we'll have these experiences where like they're so spiritual and amazing and eye-opening, and then you go back to real life, and you can completely forget about them. And it's really important to learn about old patterns and notice the patterns that you have and work, because it does take work, but it's so worth it. So really working to continue to work and reprogram your old patterns. And it's okay, like, have compassion for yourself, because you've been learning these patterns your entire life, and just now you're starting to rework them. So it does take time, and it does take practice, and it does take, it takes some work, and it takes determination, but it's the most worth it of anything that you'll ever really experience, because you're liberated from yourself and negative holding patterns. And it's really amazing. I promise you, it's so worth it and so awesome that it's better than anything that you'll ever do. You are your own teacher, and that's just how this work goes. No one's going to be behind you and sit behind you and make sure that you're doing the work. This is all up to you. Your evolution is up to you. You can evolve, but you can also stop evolving whenever you want. It's a constant, it's a lifestyle, it's a way of living. And it's amazing, but no one's going to be tracking your evolution, because you are the only one that is personally going through what you're going through, and no one's going to be there to remind you to keep doing stuff. It's not like a teacher in class that's making sure that you're doing your homework. You have to do your own homework yourself, and that's just how it goes. You're your own being. You're your own teacher. You're the one that's double checking your homework. What's cool about this stuff is that you're being tested all the time. Every time you realize a negative pattern that you have, and you're trying to reprogram it into a positive one to be more open and accepting of certain things, as soon as you go out, as soon as you have interactions with other beings, as soon as you go out into the world of grocery shopping or whatever, even within yourself, when you're thinking, you're constantly being tested, because you're constantly having situations come up that trigger certain thoughts that you have to reprogram. And so it happens faster than we think, because of this. And it's really cool. It's really awesome. Have patience with yourself. One of my biggest lessons at the beginning of this work was patience, because I just wanted it to all happen at once, and it doesn't all happen at once, and actually it can't. If it did all happen at once, our nervous system would probably have a meltdown, and we would probably, because you're taking in energy. The more you understand higher thought forms, it's an energy, and sometimes we'll go through body sensations where we feel like people call it downloading. We feel like we're taking in a lot of energy, and all of a sudden we'll feel tingles everywhere, or we'll feel, I don't really know how to say it other than you feel a lot of energy coming into your system, and you have to learn how to ground it, and you have to learn how to, be with it. And it is mental and emotional, most of it. You will feel body sensations though, and I will have other videos about how to deal with those, because it's really important to understand what's going on. It can be scary and very uncomfortable if you don't quite understand what's going on with this stuff. But yeah, you're in charge of your own evolution. No one's gonna be here to teach you, other than you're here to teach yourself and seek out other teachers. But it's so amazing, and it's so worth it. And Ascension is evolving yourself. It's becoming a greater version of you. And not only does that help, but the more that we teach ourselves, the more that we teach each other. And so but it starts with us, and we really are changing the world, but you can't change a whole population unless you're inspired to change yourself. And when you are inspired to change yourself, and when you're living out of your heart, and when you're working on yourself, people notice it. People notice it to huge levels that, you know, like, it inspires them. I know that they're one of the main reasons that I wanted to pursue this work is because I met people who were pursuing this work who were so loving and so kind and so unbelievably amazing that I was like, how do you do that, you know? And you learn how to be, and the more you learn how to do this work, the best, you know, it is for you. So again, the main things I wanted to go over, awakening, going towards the information that you're pulled towards is really important. And then I'll have videos on the basic stuff. You know, if there's basic stuff that you want to learn on your own, that's awesome. Go for it. But it all comes how it needs to. Another thing that I wanted to bring up is not getting worried about where you are in your path. You woke up at the time that you were supposed to wake up. There were lessons that you were learning before you woke up that you couldn't have learned if you were focusing on your awakening right now. So wherever you're at in your path, it's good. Don't judge it. I do that all the time with myself, because you end up meeting these people that are like, have been working on themselves for so long, and you end up judging where you're at based on them. It's really important that you don't do that. You have a purpose for where you're at, the people that you're around, and what you're doing. And you need to focus on what you're learning and where you're learning it. You can't learn it all at once. You don't want to learn it all at once. You will overwhelm yourself, and it's kind of like you will fry your circuit if you try to. So just be where you're at and meet yourself where you're at. And I totally didn't used to understand that phrase. And there's phrases that, you know, I'll say and other people will say that you won't understand, like go with the flow and meet yourself where you're at, and like have compassion for yourself. And you know, you won't really, I mean, hopefully me saying this to you will help you. For me, I didn't understand it until I really started having to do those things. And so you will learn it. You will learn it, and you are learning it already. If you're watching something like this, if you have any interest in what I'm saying, you're already on your path. You're already doing it. So you're doing everything correctly. It's just a matter of monitoring your own evolution and monitoring yourself, and being willing and using your willingness and your willpower to do what you want, and to really become a higher evolved human. And you know, anyone can do it. So yeah, ascension equals evolution. Basically the end point of this. I hope that this helped. I'll be making more videos in the future about Ascension basics and stuff. Mwah! I love you guys. You're amazing. Thank you. Whoa.